Rev up your engines!
Yummy Spaghetti says, bought a new washing machine for $3,000. It has everything, even Bluetooth. The thing broke after 1 year. Can you believe it? We called and not a single store accepts modern washers as a trade-in. Gee, I wonder why. Yeah, it's not just cars. Everything's planned obsolescence these days. And they make everything like crap. My son in Tennessee bought a refrigerator, right? It said new linear technology. The thing broke after a year and a half. Now, at least it was under warranty. The guy comes to fix it. He's a mechanic like me, so I'm talking to the guy. What does he say? He says, I got to replace everything. Look, I got to replace the compressor, the evaporator. Everything's got to be replaced. He had it on his truck because he knew. He says, this is made like crap and they all break like that. Almost a $3,000 fridge, so it just shows you. They make stuff like crap these days. We need to revolt and stop buying all this fancy Bluetooth washing machines. Hey, how about you throw it in the washing machine, you push a button, it washes it. When it's done, it buzzes, and you put it in the dryer, you push another button. We don't need all this fancy crap, you know? We just don't. Bean Parent says, Honda's automatic transmission versus Toyota's CVT. Which is better? The modern Toyota CVTs. A lot of them have a launch gear. They launch in first gear, then they switch to the CVT once they're out of first gear, and I think those are probably one of the best transmissions out there. Now, if you would have said Toyota automatic versus Toyota CVT, I would have said Toyota automatic. But you're saying Honda automatics. The weakest thing in the Hondas are their automatic transmissions. So in that case, I definitely go with the Toyota CVT. Now, Honda makes great cars, but transmissions were never their forte. Engines are their thing, not really automatic transmissions. Their standard transmissions are bulletproof, but their automatics, they leave something to be desired. So Ain't the Great says, I got a 2012 V6 Mustang, has a check engine light saying fuel filter inlet. What could it be? Thanks for the help. You know those stupid things don't have gas caps on them, right? They got just the capless system where you just stick the fuel in the hole, it pushes it and fills it. When you take it out, it flaps and seals itself. That's broken. You probably have to buy the whole thing. It's probably got a leak in it now. That's why it's got the code for it. It's the stupidest thing on earth. Why they make those? Now, I understand race cars, right? Milliseconds mean something in a race, so you got to quick get the cans of gas, pour them in. You don't want to have a cap in the way, right? And you might forget to put the cap on, then fumes come out. This, you take it out, it seals itself. Fine for a race car. But for an everyday driver car, when it breaks, then you got to replace that expensive part. A gas cap costs like $10. Those cost hundreds of dollars, and you pay somebody hundreds to install it. Bring back the gas caps, Ford. You really screwed up on that one. Xander says, Scotty, been following you a while. I got a question. My Ford Escape 04 has low acceleration, but has top power when you go fast. What could it be? First, understand, when you're going slower and accelerating, everything has to be perfect. The right amount of air, the right amount of fuel, the right amount of spark. Because you're taking off at slower RPMs. Once the engine starts spinning faster, it works better. Start with the obvious. It could be simple. Spark plugs, air filter, fuel filter. If any of those are bad, it'll do exactly that. And there's no sense pulling your air out thinking, is it the computer, is it this? Start simple. A lot of times, air filter, fuel filter, spark plugs will fix that problem. If not, clean the fuel injectors. They can be dirty. Get some good cleaner, put it in the gas tank, clean it out. You might watch my video, Make Your Car Run Better with a Little Spray Cleaner. It shows how to clean the mass airflow sensor and the throttle. You can do all that too, but try the spark plugs and the air filter and fuel filter first. Often that'll fix it. Quee says, what's the best EV right now, Mr. Scotty? The one your neighbor owns, because you don't have to buy it and it doesn't make any noise, so it won't wake you up in the morning. On the other hand, it might start on fire and burn your house down if the wind's blowing that way, so I'm not a fan of them, and it's hard to say what's best because nobody knows what technology is going to work. Is it going to be this battery? Is it going to be that battery? Is it going to be hydrogen fuel cells? What's it going to be? No one knows. You buy the wrong car with the wrong battery, you spend 60, 80 grand, then 3 years down the line they don't make them anymore, you're stuck with a pile of junk. I wouldn't buy them yet. Technology isn't here yet. I even met a businessman who has a Tesla at home, and he was renting a Tesla when he got off the airplane, right? I said, well, what'd you pay for your Tesla? He said, no, I'm leasing it at home. Technology's too new. I don't trust it over the long term. It's going to break and cost too much, so I'm just leasing it now. Lease it. See how it goes. Nestor Toledo says, I got an 11 Traverse, 206,000 kilometers, well maintained. Change the oil every 3 to 9 kilometers. Should I keep it? I'd keep it. I just had a guy bring me a Traverse. What an ironic world we live in, right? He picked that thing up for $4,000. It only had 100,000 miles and it runs like a clock. It's got some rust issues because it came from New York, so little rust parts because Chevy doesn't build them that great for rust. The salt eats them up, but it's still still ran like a top. He only paid $4,000 for it. He got a good deal. Guys like me, the mirror wasn't wobbling around too much, so he got a couple of sheet metal screws stuck in the side, so now the mirror doesn't wobble. Better the devil you know than the devil you don't. Everything's still working okay? And you say you got PO420, so the catalytic converter's a little inefficient. Run some cleaner through. A lot of times that'll fix it. And if it runs okay, who even cares? It just means it's inefficient. It's working at less than 95% efficiency. Well, so am I, and I'm not trading myself in just yet. Yusuf says, Scotty, what do you think of a Nissan Kicks? I was wondering if you had any mechanical experience. Have you heard anything about them? I made a video the other day about one. My sister-in-law rented one when she came to visit us here in Rhode Island, right? And I gotta say, I was impressed. It was a $19,000 car. My wife loved the way it looked, and she liked the way it rode. It got phenomenal gas mileage. It was getting the high 30s on the highway. And yeah, it had a CVT transmission, but I mean, you know, almost all have CVT transmissions. For that kind of money, $19,000. I gotta say, as I said in the video, if you would have blindfolded me and drove me around it, I'd think, hey, it's like a Toyota. It seems like a pretty good car, right? The only thing is that it's a Nissan. It's got a Nissan CVT transmission, and who knows how long it'll last. That's the big question with something like that. But in that price range, it's a nice set-up car. I like driving it around. She's older, so they rented it and drove here, and then I drove them all around Rhode Island, and I drove it, and I was relatively impressed by it. You know, I mean, I'm not a Nissan fan by any stretch of the imagination, but I was relatively impressed. But I wouldn't buy one because I don't trust the CVTs in Nissans. Driven Gears Automotive says, Scotty, got a question. Why are Kias continuously having some sort of problems for decades? Do you think they should learn from the issues? No, they don't. And of course, that's corporations, because corporations are there for one purpose, to make profit. So they make them cheaper and junkier. They hire PR firms and advertising companies to tell how great their crappy products are and hope fools buy them. I just had a guy come here, and his father had bought a Kia, 65,000 miles. The engine blew up on the highway. Unheard of. You'd never see that in a Toyota or a Honda, right? Even the Fords generally last longer than that. They just don't have quality control, and they don't seem to care. They just keep cranking them out, putting ads on TV. Oh, they're great. Yeah, great. Yeah, yeah. There was even a case of a guy who had one who worked at the dealer, and his engine blew up with like 15,000 miles on it, and they wouldn't fix it under warranty because they said he over-revved it. Well, it over-revved because the transmission broke and it slipped and was revving up. Plus, it wasn't even supposed to be able to rev that high. They're supposed to have a rev stopper to stop it before then, and that didn't work either. So they built it wrong, and they wouldn't even replace his engine. So he had to do it himself. Luckily, the guy was a mechanic, and soon he got rid of it and got something else. But they just make junk. Danny Brooks said, regardless of make or model, what do you recommend? Oil changes 5,000 or 10,000? I recommend 5,000 with full synthetic oil, because oil is relatively cheap. Engines cost a small fortune. Do you want to ruin an engine because dirty oil? Oil lubricates your engine. As it gets dirty, now you see oil gets black, and it's supposed to, because it's detergent oil, and the dirt stays in suspension with the detergent. So rather than it clogging and making sludge like it did in my grandfather's day, the engines are full of sludge, it holds the dirt, and you got to change it. Well, when it's dirty, it's full of sludge, and you want to change it. You push it to 10, it's going to wear more. The dirt is in the oil, that's friction, wears everything out faster. Oil's cheap, engines are expensive. I change it every 5. I don't care what anybody says. It's just absolute nonsense. Now, the only exception to this rule would be, let's say you drive cross country all the time. You could easily change it every 10 then, because if you're only driving 65 miles an hour, that's about 10% wear of stop and go city traffic. So then you could. Some of those big truckers, they change it all every 20, 30,000 miles. They're always driving 65 miles. Of course, they have diesels too, and diesel is a lubricant where gasoline is. You got to change gasoline engine oil more often than diesel. Car guy says, Scotty, is a 78 Unimog good? Okay, those Unimogs are cool. They use them for exploring the poles and stuff. They are phenomenal vehicles. This guy down the road here in Rhode Island has got one. It's cool. I rode around it. It's got its crazy transmission with all these gears and stuff. You said it's a 78 good. Well, that is so old. Everything could possibly be worn out on it. But if you're a hobby guy, they still make parts for them, and you want to get one, I'm assuming that 78 is probably a diesel, and the diesel engines can run a really long time. Unique vehicles, there's no arguing that. They're extremely rare, especially in the United States. And if you want to mess around with something like that, yeah, you better be prepared to fix absolutely everything. Brakes, transmission, engine, windows, everything's going to break being that old. Auto Detailing says, I got an '09 Infiniti G37 Coupe. I removed the mufflers and resonators, and now it starts to hesitate when I accelerate on the gas pedal. What could it be? I changed the spark plugs and coils. You've removed the mufflers and resonators. That's now gone. I don't ever advise doing that. That car was made to have all those parts on. You took them off. They're no longer there. you got more flow, but that flow confuses the computer. The computer still thinks that stuff's still there, so it won't run right. It's typical. I see it all the time. That's why you don't remove them from modern cars. When I was a kid, people did all the time. They just had carburetors. And a lot of times they'd go good enough. If they didn't, you could rejet the carburetors, buy a little jet kit for 20 bucks. It was cheap. Not anymore. It's all computerized. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.